This program contains scenes of religious rituals, which include animal sacrifice. Viewer discretion is advised. It is said to have the power to heal, to bring good fortune, and to punish. In return, it wants tribute, song, dance, alcohol, and the blood of sacrificed animals.
You don't dare offer a dirty animal to a spirit.
A spirit can make its presence known in the most shocking ways.
The person who's being possessed temporarily loses control of their body.
In Haiti, the spirits are said to have given slaves an impossible victory. And in New Orleans, given one woman power to rule the entire city. Journey deep into Africa, to Haiti and New Orleans, and uncover voodoo secrets. "60 million people around the world believe in voodoo. For them, it is an established religion that may even predate Christianity. Its rituals include animal sacrifice and spirit possession. To those on the outside, voodoo is filled with dark secrets and mystery. It's said to have mysterious powers to bring good fortune, to heal, and punish enemies. But those who practice voodoo say voodoo is the most misunderstood religion in the world.
A lot of Americans believe that voodoo is either a collection of magic or an evil satanic practice, and really it's not either one of those things, it's a religion.
But how did an ancient religion become associated with evil and curses? Voodoo practitioners blame popular books and Hollywood movies for demonizing their religion.
White zombie.
One book or one movie can actually spread the word of misconceptions to the general public because the general public is not aware of what the religion actually is.
On the surface, voodoo imagery invokes black magic and darkness to outside eyes. But the item most identified with voodoo dolls, is not part of the religious practice.
Some people have this idea that that's what we do. We sit around all day sticking pins into dolls that represent our enemies. It has nothing to do with reality.
Voodoo is a religion with a dramatic history of West African origins, triumphing over the evil of slavery in Haiti, and giving one American city a unique culture and flavor. The best way to uncover the secrets of voodoo may be to travel to Benin in West Africa, the epicenter of voodoo. It's here that the voodoo religion began so long ago that no one knows when it originated. They can only be sure that it's ancient.
Voodoo is as old as the creation of a country, our people here. It's as old as human beings on this earth.
The tiny West African nation of Benin offers a rare opportunity to see voodoo as it's been practiced for centuries. In the Benin tribal language of Fan, the word voodoo means one thing: spirit. And serving spirits is what voodoo is all about. Voodoo followers worship a supreme God whom they believe created the universe. They believe this God is too almighty to directly intervene in their daily lives. Between the supreme God and mankind are countless voodoo spirits, each with their own domain of influence. There are spirits of wisdom, war, fertility, death, even a spirit of the sea. The isolated Benin village of Veji has a population of 3,000. The village serves a voodoo spirit called Sakpata. In African voodoo, Sakpata is the earth spirit who can protect against disease, provide bountiful crops, and contribute to the general well-being of the community.
Sakpata make good things for everybody. It is why when you come and you have problems and you go to see Sakpata, you will get benefit, you will get solution for your problems.
But for Sakpata to provide for the village must honor and serve the spirit. The village believes one way to honor the spirit is through animal sacrifice. In Voodoo, honoring a spirit can bring good fortune. Ignoring the spirit brings bad fortune. The village will honor Sakpata by holding a Voodoo ceremony. They will ask Sakpata to bless the village and provide food and protection. The festivity begins with singing the villagers' hope will call the spirit Sakpata down to them.
It's not the same drum rhythm for every spirit, and it's not the same song for every spirit. Every spirit has its song, has its dance.
This cave is the village's shrine to the spirit Sakpata. Inside, a Voodoo priest offers the spirit water to determine if it will grant permission for the ceremony. The spirit accepts. Offerings are one way Voodoo practitioners believe they can honor the spirits. For the spirit Sakpata, common offerings include water, alcohol, and palm oil. But what the spirit wants most is blood. This ceremony will offer Sakpata the rare sacrifice of a young bull.
I know that some people are repelled by the idea of animal sacrifice. We kill animals the same way that we would kill them normally, to just butcher them for ordinary consumption. We don't torture the animal, we're not morbid, we're not bloodthirsty about it. When we kill the animal, the blood is for the spirit and the meat is for the congregation.
In Voodoo, the purpose of animal sacrifice is to give the spirit the power and nourishment to do good things for believers.
Blood is very important in Voodoo because blood is actually what you feed the shrine to help the communication. It's the best food you can feed your spirit.
To Voodoo believers, it's essential to capture the animal's blood as soon as possible. The fresher the blood, the more essence of life the spirit can take in, and the more empowered the spirit will become. In the final moments before the sacrifice, the congregation gives the bull a message to take to the spirit, Sakpata. With the message given to the bull, it's time to dispatch the animal to deliver it to the spirit, Sakpata. No blood is wasted. The sooner the warm blood can be offered to Sakpata, the better. Goats are taken directly into the shrine, and the spirit can be offered the blood even more immediately.
That is the first jet of the blood that we put on the Voodoo. That is important, like food to Voodoo.
By feeding Sakpata blood, Voodoo believers hope to honor the spirit Sakpata enough that it will take the ceremony to the next level. These women are Voodoo initiates who consider themselves married to the spirit. They are showing signs of a Voodoo phenomenon known as spiritual possession. They believe the spirit has taken over their minds and that the spirit is using their bodies to continue its quest for blood.
We are not tasting the blood. It's the Voodoo spirit. The blood is for the spirit. That's why when we are having a ceremony, it's our husband who is tasting the blood, not us.
Those who experience Voodoo possession, whether in Africa, Haiti, or America, say they have no memory of the experience.
It's as though I fall asleep. Two consciousnesses cannot occupy the same head at the same time. I don't remember anything. I become unconscious until it leaves again.
As frightening as it may seem, Voodoo possession is considered the highest honor a spirit can pay a believer.
Possession is not demonic, it's not satanic. Possession is natural and highly desirable in the context of a voodoo ceremony.
In our society, we go to church to worship the spirit or worship God. In Voodoo, you go to the temple to become God. It's a very major difference.
Later in the same ceremony, the spiritual possession continues. This time, the spirits dance through the humans they possess.
If we are not possessed by the spirit, we cannot dance this way. Because we are possessed by the spirit, it's not us who's dancing, it's the voodoo spirit who is dancing through us, using our bodies.
The voodoo ceremony concludes with a feast. The animals sacrificed that day are the main course. Nothing is wasted.
It's not all that different than what we do at Thanksgiving. At Thanksgiving, our animals, our turkeys, are sacrificed for us by mechanized slaughterhouses, and here we see people participating in that actual ritual. And one has to wonder, when they're actually valuing the life of that animal as they do the ritual, whether we're more civilized or they're more civilized about it.
Through the voodoo sacrifice of animals and the possession by the spirit of Sakpata, the village believes Sakpata feels honored enough to protect and provide for them. Next, believers tap into voodoo's dark side, getting spirits drunk. West Africa is home to some of the most unusual voodoo rituals in the world. But a ritual that takes place in the remote Benin village of Savalo may seem especially bizarre to outsiders. This is where voodoo believers try to get a spirit drunk, hoping the spirit will grant their requests. If requests are fulfilled, they pay the spirit back in blood.
In voodoo religion, there is a contract that's entered into with spirits. If you don't go back and offer up the blood, you're actually not fulfilling the contract to its final term.
This tree trunk is a sacred shrine to the voodoo spirit Don Koli, the spirit of the forest. The tools for making a request of Don Koli are wooden stakes and palm oil. This man makes a request of Don Koli. His request is represented by the wooden stake. By pounding the stake deep into the spirit's shrine, he hopes the spirit will receive the request. As an incentive to the spirit, the man makes an offering of red palm oil.
Asking the voodoo spirits to provide them with some outcome is essentially a ritual for them to drive the request home, you might say. Kind of like lighting a candle in prayer to God.
Some requests require the spirit be plied with alcohol.
I will take alcohol, sprayed on the Koli to make him more powerful, to make him drunker against my enemies who will think bad things against me.
If Don Koli grants the request, the believer promises to return with a reward.
If the enemies are hurt after the request, or if you get a solution for your problems after the request, you must be back to thank the Koli.
Don Koli is typically rewarded with the blood of a sacrificed animal. Although some ask Don Koli to punish their enemies, others ask for healing.
I have one of my sons who was very sick. We went everywhere, traditional medicine and modern, but no satisfaction. But when I came here, my son is cured from that sickness.
Today, the man has come to reward the spirit with the blood of a goat.
When you get satisfaction, after 6 months or 1 year, you come and you sacrifice the animal for Dakoli.
First, the man gives the goat a message to take to the spirit. Then, the spirit gets its blood.
If you do not finish the contract, it's very possible that the belief system says that there's going to be retribution, which will be to take away the event that actually happened, to reverse what was done for you.
With the sacrifice, the man's contract with the spirit Dankoli is now fulfilled.
Vous immolez la bête et après, vous enlevez le pied que vous jetez.
When you make sacrifice, you take off the stick and you throw it away. So that means you don't have anything again to give to Dankoli, and Dankoli don't have nothing to do again with you, and you are satisfied.
As with all sacrifices, the animal is cooked and eaten, with no part of the goat going to waste. Western medicine is common in West Africa, but remote parts of Benin offer a rare chance to see voodoo healing. This is a healing temple in the village of Abome, 50 miles away from the village of Veji. This woman says she suffers from splitting headaches and pain in her joints. She's been to a Western hospital, which she says didn't help. Now she turns to voodoo for healing.
Going to see a voodoo healer to be healed is very similar to going to see a faith healer. It gives power back to you in the sense that you truly are bolstered in your belief that you will get better.
Voodoo followers who don't find a scientific reason for their illness believe it may be caused by bad spirits, possibly the result of a curse placed by an enemy. To heal his patients, voodoo priest Yamaje Bartholome calls upon the voodoo spirit Sojayatine, the thunder spirit. The priest uses shells to ask the spirit a series of diagnostic questions about the patient's health.
The healer will evoke the voodoo spirit, and the spirit will tell them the kind of herbs you have to make use of to cure the disease.
The use of cowrie shells in diagnostics here is not much than the use of bones, tarot cards, dice, to read the future, to find out what's going on. It's a method of divination.
The healer uses a sacred rattle called an asan to direct the spirit toward the woman. Alcohol is used to embolden the spirit and reward its cooperation in the healing. Once the priest believes the spirit has given him a diagnosis, he sends his assistant and the patient out for the cure. Instead of aspirin or cold medicines, voodoo pharmacies stock much more exotic items, including animal skulls, turtle shells, and dried reptiles. The healer sends his patient out to buy an animal skull because she suffers from a headache, and the pain needs a place to go, another skull. But the trip to the market itself may have its own healing power.
Sending this woman to the market to actually buy the items, the skull and the herbs, really gives her an active role in her own healing process.
The ingredients alone are not enough to heal the woman. They must first be activated by the voodoo spirit.
So you cannot go and buy some skulls, some chameleon, and put them together as you can buy aspirin or a Western medicine, put them together, give it to the patient. No. You need to know the words, incantation words.
The voodoo priest uses the blessed animal skull to remove the sickness from the woman.
by using the skull, you're doing a bit of sympathetic magic to draw out the head pain into the head of an animal. It's really transfer of energy.
The final step in the healing process is to make sure the illness doesn't return. The priest offers the spirit gunpowder to help fight off future attacks by the illness. According to the shells, the priest judges the treatment a success.
The mind can convince the body that it is healed or is going to be healed, and it will somehow start processes happening in the body to speed up the healing process.
Just as many believe voodoo has the power to heal, some believe voodoo can be used to hurt or even to kill. Next, in Haiti, a voodoo curse is believed to be responsible for killing 200 people. Haiti. 90% of the Caribbean nation practices voodoo. On September 11, 1997, a brand new Haitian ferry sank just 50 yards from shore. 200 people died. Investigators determined the boat was overcrowded and its escape doors were locked. People on board gathered on one side of the vessel, causing it to capsize. But angry crowds were certain a rival ferry owner placed a curse on the sunken ferry.
In Haiti, nothing happens by chance or by luck. The notion of luck just doesn't exist. Things occur because there is a cause, there is a reason. And usually the cause is witchcraft or sorcery.
As revenge, angry mobs torched the rival owner's property and his ferry. The story of how Haiti came to believe so strongly in voodoo is rooted in one of mankind's most evil practices, slavery. Between the mid-1600s and mid-1800s, nearly 12 million slaves left these West African shores. They took nothing with them but what they carried in their heads and in their hearts. Their voodoo religion.
When you have lost your identity, everything has been taken away from you, the only way you can survive is to refer to your religion.
Many West African slaves endured a 3-month voyage to a Caribbean island called Saint Domingue, a French colony that later would become Haiti. Upon arrival in Haiti in the 1700s, slaves from different tribes were intermixed to ensure they didn't speak the same language. Even so, the slaves had two things in common: their French oppressors and voodoo.
The French feared the coming together of Africans because they didn't know exactly what was being planned.
Fearing the power of voodoo, the French tried to force it out of the slaves' hearts and minds.
And what the Catholic missionaries had thought was to just simply get rid of the African tradition and replace it by Roman Catholicism, but that didn't happen.
The slaves found ways to secretly practice voodoo during Catholic ceremonies. In their minds, they transformed Catholic saints into voodoo spirits. In voodoo, the spirit of wisdom, Danbala, is represented by a snake. The slaves saw Danbala whenever their oppressors invoked St. Patrick.
St. Patrick chases the snakes out of Ireland, and Danbala is also associated with the snake. So on the basis of similarity between St. Patrick in Ireland and the snakes and Danbala, St. Patrick becomes Danbala.
In the mid-1700s, there were 500,000 slaves on the island and just 32,000 French colonists. The French were unable to prevent the mass escape of slaves.
A lot of them just simply took to the hills. They ran off from the plantation and established communities in the interior of the island where there are a lot of mountains, and a lot of the Europeans would not venture in those areas.
High in the mountains, runaway slaves openly practiced voodoo and plotted rebellion. In 1751, legend has it that one of the rebel leaders was a voodoo priest named Francois Macondo. As a voodoo priest, Macondo was schooled in the art of herbal medicine. He could use voodoo to heal and to kill.
People who are voodooists, many of them know a great deal about the environment and about the leaves and plants, about the foliage. They could pretty well poison anything.
Macondo's insurgency began silently with the help of plantation slaves and servants. The bond of their voodoo beliefs helped seal the secrecy of the mission.
He inspired cooks who worked in the homes of the planters to poison the planters, and a lot of planters who were very, very much afraid of the people who'd cook for them.
The voodoo priest Macondo also poisoned water supplies, sowing fear and terror among plantation owners and French forces.
They became more paranoid because you just have no clue as to who's introducing the poison. You just start suspecting everyone. Poison is an act of terror.
The French spent 5 years hunting Macondo, during which time his rebellion was believed to claim 6,000 lives. When the French finally captured him in 1758, they showed no mercy. French authorities held a public execution to make an example of Macondo. They forced slaves to watch. But according to legend, the slaves witnessed something that turned horror into triumph: a voodoo escape. As Macondo caught fire, slaves saw him magically transform into a bird and fly away.
In Voodoo tradition, there are stories that human beings sometimes have the power of changing into animals. A lot of the slaves believed that when they died, their soul would be transported back to Africa. So it's not at all unusual that people would have thought that Macondo would have turned into a bird and would have flown back.
Today, the legend of Macondo lives on in the language of voodoo.
The name Macondo becomes associated with poison. So when you give a person a poison, you don't mention the word poison. You mention, I gave him a Macondo.
August 14, 1791, 3 decades after Macondo's death, rebel slaves used the power of voodoo to ignite a more powerful uprising. It began when a voodoo priest named Boukman led a ceremony attended by rebel leaders. They called upon the voodoo spirit of war, Ogu. They promised to serve the voodoo spirit forever if it gave them victory. The spirit is said to have signaled its acceptance of the offer by possessing many during the ceremony. To thank Ogu, they sacrificed a black pig in the spirit's honor.
They used the blood of the pig, which they all shared with one another, sealing each other's lips, as it were, symbolically, never to reveal the secrets of Voodoo. And then to march from that point and then go on and fight and liberate Haiti.
A week later, the voodoo-inspired attack began. Runaway slaves torched thousands of plantations and killed plantation owners. The rebels used captured guns and farming tools like machetes to take on the French army. The French were better armed, but unaware of what they were truly up against. They say in Haiti that Napoleon had to lose because he was fighting voodoo spirits and not men. The battles raged on and off for over a decade. 50,000 French troops perished in the final years of the struggle. Then, on January 1st, 1804, after a succession of leaders, the rebel forces won and expelled the French from Haiti.
They fought the very best army that the world had, which is Napoleon's army, and they won. I mean, that's the fact.
The war that began with a voodoo ceremony and defeated Napoleon's army was the first and only successful slave rebellion in world history. Next, voodoo leaves Haiti for New Orleans, where a notorious voodoo queen uses voodoo to free a man from prison. New Orleans, the Big Easy, home to the Mardi Gras Parade. It's the voodoo capital of America, with an estimated 15% of the population practicing the religion. Louisiana was once a French territory, and voodoo arrived in force here in the late 1700s when French plantation owners fleeing Haiti brought their Haitian slaves with them. Today, tourists in New Orleans buy voodoo dolls from shops in the French Quarter. But there's a secret side to New Orleans voodoo that most people never see. Some rituals are practiced far from the tourists' eyes. One place where locals and tourists both visit, however, is St. Louis Cemetery. Inside this crypt is the body of a woman who created a uniquely New Orleans style of voodoo. Marie Laveau has been dead since 1881, but some believe she still has power over the city. What she did in the 1800s is the stuff of legends, even though there's little factual proof of her magical powers or records of her life.
Many documents have disappeared. Many were falsified in the first place. There's just layer after layer after layer of folklore, lies, mythology, wild stories.
Experts believe Marie Laveau was born somewhere between 1794 and 1803. She was said to be the daughter of a wealthy white plantation owner and his slave mistress. In early 19th century New Orleans, she was considered a free person of color. She developed a relationship with the head of the New Orleans Catholic Church.
The pastor of St. Louis Cathedral was a man named Père Antoine. He works with the prisoners, the lowest of the low. He works to free slaves. And his chief companion in this work was Marie Laveau.
Like many people in New Orleans, Marie Laveau was both Catholic and a voodoo believer.
People in New Orleans went to Catholic Mass at St. Louis Cathedral in the morning and to Congo Square for voodoo ceremonies in the afternoon.
Congo Square was voodoo central in New Orleans, where free people of color and slaves gathered for voodoo ceremonies on Sundays. It's there that legendary voodoo priest Dr. John is believed to have taught Marie Laveau everything he knew about voodoo, including how to formulate a powerful charm called gris-gris. Gris-gris bags were filled with anything from starch, dried beans, metal filings, or animal skin.
The ingredients themselves are not the key thing. It's the intention that you put on the gris-gris bag that matters.
The person who made gris-gris appealed to voodoo spirits to give it special powers.
Do you understand the power that you are receiving?
Gris-gris is no different than wearing a cross or a St. Christopher medal or carrying a lucky rabbit's foot. It hung around your neck or you put it above the door. It carried protection.
Marie Laveau sold gris-gris out of her home and built a reputation as a voodoo queen with mysterious powers. Some believed her voodoo power was backed up by power of intimidation.
Marie Laveau had an amazing network of folks to give her information, to actually spy on people. She had political connections, economic connections under the surface of her public persona.
Marie's political power and relationship with Catholic pastor Père Antoine allowed her to do something that would be blasphemous in any other church.
Marie Laveau could conduct what were, in effect, voodoo ceremonies at the altar of the largest Catholic church the cathedral of the Louisiana Purchase.
In the 1830s, one incident is alleged to have convinced all of New Orleans of Marie Laveau's voodoo powers. A wealthy man's son was on trial for murder. His lawyers told him his son's case was hopeless, so he turned to Marie Laveau. In desperation, the father offered Marie Laveau a house if she could use voodoo to free his son. To accomplish this feat, she spent weeks praying at St. Louis Church, undergoing a form of self-torture for the cause. She placed 3 excruciatingly hot guinea peppers in her mouth and held them there for hours.
Guinea is a name for Africa in many voodoo circles. The spirits, like the spirits of voodoo, always take pity on great suffering. And so when she offered to suffer on behalf of her intention, they heard her.
On the morning of the trial, Marie Laveau snuck into court. She put the peppers that had been in her mouth under the judge's chair. Some believe the spiritual energy of the voodoo-infused peppers caused the judge to set the man free. Legend has it the freed man's father rewarded Marie Laveau with a house on St. Anne Street.
Now, that's the spiritual explanation for what happened in this story. The political explanation is that she knew the judge.
Regardless of how she freed the man, most of New Orleans now believed Marie Laveau could use voodoo to sway the city's justice system. In July 1850, an incident occurred that only strengthened the city's belief in Marie Laveau's voodoo powers. She was a staunch opponent of public executions that were common during her day.
These were public hangings, and they were very dramatic, and they were treated like Mardi Gras parades, and so thousands of people came.
Jean Adams and Anthony DeLille were sentenced to hang for the murder of a black slave girl. They had been incarcerated in parish prison.
Marie Laveau had spent the night with the 2 condemned men, praying for them, and she promised them that she would spare them from the public humiliation of hanging.
The double hanging of Adams and DeLille was set to take place at noon on July 17, 1850. But not if Marie Laveau could use voodoo to stop it. High noon on July 17, 1850. A public hanging was about to take place in downtown New Orleans. Jean Adams and Anthony DeLille were sentenced to die for the murder of a black slave girl.
So that morning, just before noon, it was a beautiful sunny day. The sky was deep blue. Crowds were gathered. There were thousands of people, according to the newspapers.
Many in the crowd noticed Marie Laveau's arrival. She was known as the Voodoo Queen of New Orleans. She was also a staunch opponent of public executions. Moments before the men were scheduled to hang, the sky mysteriously turned black.
It started to rain. It started to pour, just like solid water out of the heavens.
Then the moment of truth arrived.
Proceed.
With the opening of the trap door. Complete shock.
People gasped, and this tremor ran through the crowd because the men had fallen to the ground below. Their ropes were gone.
To many witnesses, there was only one explanation.
Marie Laveau made this happen. That she was trying to spare them the humiliation of the gallows.
With a belief system like voodoo, it's very simple when a powerful figure like Marie Laveau is involved to make the connection between a sudden shift in weather and the guys falling out of the nooses. That becomes more explainable by voodoo than it is by coincidence.
The men were later hanged again, but the unexplainable event achieved Marie Laveau's aim. The public was outraged by the cruelty the men endured during the botched hanging. As a result, Louisiana became the first American state to ban public executions.
It is one of the most powerful witnesses to voodoo that we have, because there were so many witnesses to these events, and because the state did pass this law.
Marie Laveau died in 1881 at the approximate age of 87. Even so, many believe she still has voodoo power over the city, the ability to help those who make offerings and punish those who dishonor her. Like author Robert Tallant, in the 1940s and 50s, Tallant published books about Marie Laveau. Voodoo practitioners blame his books for creating false perceptions of voodoo as evil and violent. His best-selling 1947 book, Voodoo in New Orleans, was sold as nonfiction, but many believed it was full of lurid distortions and half-truths. Tallant described reports of Marie Laveau conducting orgies and sacrificing human babies as voodoo rituals.
She was an evil woman, her. She killed babies that were not wanted by their mothers. She used to hang their bodies up in her chimney like hams and smoke them. Oh, she killed lots of children. They say her armoire was filled with skeletons.
On April 1st, 1957, 10 years after his book, Voodoo in New Orleans, was published, Tallant met a mysterious demise.
Robert Tallant was in his kitchen. He reached up in his cabinet. He pulled a clear glass down from the kitchen cabinet. He held it under the tap, filled it with tap water, drank 3 sips, and dropped dead on the floor. New Orleans water doesn't usually kill that quickly.
To many in New Orleans, the cause of Tallant's premature death at the age of 47 was obvious. Spiritual payback for disrespecting voodoo and the spirit of Marie Laveau. Today, most people in New Orleans try to keep on Marie Laveau's good side. Hundreds of people make offerings at her crypt every day. She's become a kind of saint and voodoo spirit to dedicated practitioners.
She's a respected ancestor, and people continue to offer her food and remember her name and ask her to help them. They serve her and she serves them.
Although voodoo permeates all of New Orleans folklore, it continues to be a serious religion for many, attracting new believers. In Haiti, voodoo coexists with the Catholic Church and remains strong.
In the past, voodoo has been the target of campaigns to eradicate our religion. Politically motivated, religiously motivated, and they've never succeeded. Voodoo has been here for thousands of years. It will be here for thousands of years more.
And in West Africa, the birthplace of voodoo, the religion remains uninfluenced by the perceptions of the outside world.
Voodoo, there is no bad part of voodoo for us. Voodoo provides good things for us. That's why we believe.
Voodoo's unique history has made it a captivating subject for believers and non-believers alike. Those who practice voodoo will keep serving the spirits in the belief that the spirits will serve them. But to those looking in from the outside, voodoo will remain mysterious and filled with secrets.